Here I have the result of a full join. You want to use a full join when you want to see all the records from both tables. To better understand this, let's quickly review the inner join. The inner join filters out any information that does not have a corresponding value in the other table. Using the example of customers and orders, if I don't have any orders that correspond to any customer, then I'm not gonna get those orders in the result. So the result is just gonna be the matching values. In this case, it's gonna be the orders that correspond to a customer that we have. Now, the left join, we're gonna get all the rows from the left table. What does this mean? That we're gonna get all the customers, and for the ones that do not have orders, we're gonna get no values in those columns of the orders table, because we have these customers, but they do not have orders that correspond to them. Therefore, we don't have anything. It's not available. That's why we place no values in the columns of the right table. Now, the right join is the same as the left join, but it is flipped. So we're going to place no values in the left table instead. So the full join actually combines the left join and the right join. We combine those, and that's when we get the full join, because in the left join, we get all the rows from the left table. In the right join, we get all the rows from the right table. So if we come and put them together, that's the full join. We're gonna get all the records from both tables, and the null values are gonna still be placed, in the corresponding table that do not have a corresponding data in the other table. So here we're gonna do an example, and with this example, I'm pretty sure that you're gonna understand the full join. It's gonna be a little bit confusing at the beginning, but bear with me. Here I have two tables that I'm gonna be working with. I'm gonna be working with the suppliers table, and I'm gonna be working with the customers table. Now, if you notice, these have columns that are named the same. So I have a company name in the suppliers table, and I have a company name in the customers table. However, don't let this detail get you confused, because the company name is referring to the company name of the supplier, and the customers table, the company name is referring to the name of that customer company. And the same thing for country. The country in the suppliers table represents the country in which the supplier is located. Same thing for the customers table. The country column represents in which country the customer is located in. Now, first, I'm going to write the example and run it, and then I'm going to break it down. So we're going to do select COALESCE in parentheses, C that country, comma, is that country, as country. And I'm going to come back to this function here, but let me finish the query first. So after I select that, I'm going to go ahead and select C that company name as customer company, and is that company name as supplier company. From customers as C full join suppliers as is on C that country equals is that country. Order by country. Now let me go ahead and run this query. So we can see the countries in which we have a customer or a supplier or both. So this is why the left join is so useful, because you get to see, okay, do we have either or do we have both? These kind of scenarios are the scenarios in which you want to use a full join. So let me break down this query, and I'm gonna assume that this here, the C that name as customer company is that name is that company name as supplier company from customer. This is the syntax of joins. So if you are familiar with the inner join and the left join and the other kind of joins, this syntax should be very familiar to you. However, we did two things differently. We used this function here, COALESCE, and gave it two values. And we also didn't use any like primary key or like anything like that. We just used a common column that just happens to work for this example. So here on C that country equals is that country. That's because we want the countries to be equal to each other. So for the coalesce, here the coalesce is a function that returns the first non-null value that you give it. If you give it a list of values, it's going to return the first value that is not null. So if you give it, for example, two arguments and none of them are null, then it's going to just return the first value. But if you give it another two values and one of those values is null, then it's going to return the first one that is not null. So for example, if I have select coalesce x comma y as letter, and I'm going to put a semicolon. If I run that, I'm going to get the x because x is the first non-null value. And the same thing, if I have the same value, for example, y, I'm just going to get the first y. But if I place a null value instead, I'm going to get the second y because that's the first non-null value. So now if I have x and null, I'm just going to get x because again, it's going to return the first value that is not null. So with that said, I hope that everything makes sense. And now I hope you understand the full join well. With that said, this is the Database Dojo. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.